Good evening, Anchorpete here, and I'm with my wife, Shari T. And, Shari, wouldn't it have been kind of funny if we'd start off this video where you looked kind of catatonic, and then I, grabbed your head, and I just, vomited water into your mouth? People that watch the show would know what I'm talking about. Shari, welcome to another episode of our review of LISEY'S story. We're up to episode 6, and the title of this one is called Now You Must Be Still.
Right, and I want to correct us after last week. We thought there were 10 episodes. There's 8, so we only have 2 episodes left. Hallelujah. And I think by the end of this episode, you can tell that things are coming to a head.
Yes. Yes.
I'm actually excited. This episode got me excited.
Did it now?
Yes.
Well, spoiler central, everybody. So from now on, if you haven't seen tonight's episode, go watch it on Apple TV, then come join us. But Shari, why are you excited?
So this episode culminated in a plan forming between the 3 sisters of what they're going to do about Jim Dooley, who is, the villain of the series.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, he's absolutely the villain, yeah.
No, but the plan formed.
Yes. Well, it formed with 3 sisters because they were actually able to free Manda this episode.
Yes.
They freed her from Bully Moon, or what do they call it? The other name for it?
You are just like Darla. You're getting the name wrong. It's Booyah Moon.
Yes. In the show, Darla is saying the wrong name.
She keeps saying Bully Moon like you just did.
Yeah. That's a typical thing in books and movies and TV shows where someone says the wrong name for something to kind of show that they don't really believe it. Because she's treating it like they're crazy. Because everything does seem pretty crazy. But
yeah, I think this happens between you and me in real life.
I do it as a joke often.
Okay.
I purposely pretend like I don't know the name of something.
Sometimes I'll get the name wrong because I truly am not interested.
Yeah, that too. I see that a lot.
I think that's kind of maybe more where Darla's coming from. She's just like, whatever y'all are talking about.
Yeah. But
rolling her eyes. But I did kind of love seeing her character have to face that this is a real thing, an actual thing. There was some comedy in this episode, don't you think?
Yeah. One thing we should point out, I don't know if you guys know this already, but Shari has actually read the entire book at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so she's kind of constantly telling me, oh, this is different from the book. This is different from the book, right?
I'm so annoying.
Yeah, I'm usually like that with Shari with Game of Thrones or something, but
it's my turn.
It's Shari's turn, yeah. And so you were saying that Darla, Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, is not really a major character in the book, right?
No, she's all of the things up until this. She's not a part of Amanda's rescue from Booyah Moon. That's all LISEY. That's all just LISEY and Amanda. And from here on out in the rest of the book, it's LISEY and Amanda. No Darla. Darla's caught up with another sister who's not even featured on the show. And but I'm gonna say I like this change. Yeah. I like the 3 sister thing. I know Stephen King has everything to do with this, so he must have agreed with this change as being a positive contribution.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it on the show. It's kind of fun, first of all, to see something added that I didn't know is coming and to enjoy that thing. A lot of times they add things that I didn't know were coming, or they subtract things that I didn't expect, and I'm unhappy about it. I'm like, this is wrong from the book. But I like that this is different from the book because I think it plays up something that maybe the book should have played up. I like the sister thing.
Well, we've said this a couple of times on this show that Stephen King writes every teleplay. He writes every episode, right? And that he wrote the book. And we've also talked about that Stephen King is a pantser, and he kind of writes things. He doesn't really know where he's going necessarily, which leads to his criticism that people get a lot for him, which is that he doesn't know how to end things, right? And I was going to say that it sets up a dynamic with this change that he himself made, which you're talking about, where there's these 3 sisters, right? There's the one that is deeply involved in this situation because she's comatose and she has had this problem, it seems like her whole life. And you have LISEY, who's half skeptic, half believer. And then you have Darla, who's essentially full skeptic. So you have this range, right? There's all the way in the deep end, someone that's kind of halfway through, and then another person that's in the shallow side.
Right.
Look, I put a little water metaphor in there too.
Nice.
Thank you. Yes. So I think that just not reading the whole book like Shari did, I appreciate Jennifer Jason Leigh's character because she's sort of like the audience cipher, right? She's like the audience, like me, sitting there saying like, okay, this is a little ridiculous. I just watched you vomit water into your sister's mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, she is kind of speaking for the audience. I like that interpretation. We do need someone like that. There's a couple of scenes with her that, again, don't exist in the book, but I really enjoyed on this episode.
Yeah.
Like I like when they're trying to talk to the psychiatrist about Amanda's better. Look, she's suddenly better. Can we take her home with us? Lisey's sitting there talking to him, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, who is Darla's character, who is playing Darla, is in the background looking at the pictures and just kind of being this like sort of nuisance-y distraction. I really enjoyed that.
So that's not in the book at all.
No, because she's not there.
Right.
Darla's just not there.
Yeah, she's sitting there, and this doctor must be a really famous doctor because he's like in a picture with Bruce Springsteen, and then he's in another picture with Al Gore. So he's making the rounds, that guy.
Yeah, I don't think very many doctors are famous except for Fauci.
Right.
I mean, maybe in the doctor circles, but
yeah.
He's obviously successful. He's running this whole place.
Yeah, and they alluded to the fact that like Scott knew that Amanda would need this kind of help from this guy in this facility, right?
Yeah, he had set up the whole spot for her at Green Lawn, which is the name of the facility. He had set it up before he died.
I see.
Yeah, so he knew it was coming.
But yeah, there's a lot of like premonition where like Scott anticipated things, and they sort of allude to that he knew that Dooley was coming too, right?
Yeah, it happens early on, and it happens in one of these episodes, the first or second episode maybe, where he tells her that he tells Lisey, you're going to have a blood pool.
I see.
I think she maybe has a dream, and he tells her that in the dream or something, and that is Dooley, what he does to her in the last episode.
Yeah, well, I have to say, Shari, that I was really happy that Amanda woke up just for the sake of the show. We're at 6 episodes into the show, and there's a lot of scenes that kind of feel like we see this every single week. And I'm just going to be upfront. It's pretty sick of seeing Joan Allen's catatonic face and her sort of like her kind of moaning, talking that she would do, like, Lisey, save me, or no. Like that was just getting on my nerves at this point. I like Joan Allen. You know, I've seen quite a few movies where, you know, I feel for her character, but in this, I just was like, can we move on? Can she like die, or can she come back? You know, something.
Do you like her better now that she's awake?
Yes, of course, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I noticed a couple of interesting things too. Lisey goes into Booyah Moon. She goes into that area right by herself. And she finds
that's how the episode starts.
Yeah, she finds the spot where Paul, Scott's brother, was buried, and she finds a syringe that was a big part of the last episode, and it was attached to a string. Do they explain that in the book?
Absolutely, that's going to matter.
Okay.
And if they do what the book does, that's going to come up.
Okay, so I'm assuming
it's a thread.
Oh, plot thread.
Yeah, but also literally, it's a thread.
Right. I'm thinking that maybe that syringe, maybe she takes it out with her, and that might be helpful at the end of the book. We'll see. Let me see. What else did I want to talk about? There's a lot about just rescuing Amanda, which was good.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what's important, I feel like this episode has like a couple of important like steps. Lisey has figured out how to get to Booyah Moon on her own. And the last 5 episodes, I feel like we're building to her needing to be able to do this, right? Because she needs to heal herself. She heals herself this episode. After she's done that, she turns around and sees that Amanda's here. I'm always a little confused about why Lisey and Scott, when they go to Booyah Moon, their whole body's gone. Like it's not there, but Amanda's body's still there, but she's also in Booyah Moon. And they kind of like, they give you this term, she's a double.
Yes.
But like, I don't remember that in the book, and I'm just like, I know they're giving us a term, but it still doesn't explain it to me. Why is she like that and they're not?
See, that's kind of disappointing to me because I thought that maybe having read the book, you would know what the hell they were talking about.
No, I don't, and I didn't really understand in the book either.
Okay, well, not only do they call her a double in the show, at least, they also call her an anchor. And as someone who's like name that I've adopted or whatever that I use and all this shit is Anchorpete, I was like, okay, well, what does it mean to be an anchor in this world or in this show? Do you know?
I'm not clear about that either, because if she's an anchor, then why is she there? And I mean, in the book, it's very clear that certain objects are anchors.
Okay.
Like, you know how Lisey's able to take the shovel to Booyah Moon?
Yes.
Some things you can't take.
Okay, so
like, remember when Scott was a little boy and he takes his brother Paul?
Yes.
He's able to take him, right? Well, he tries to take him when Paul has the bad gunky.
Oh,
and
yes.
he can't. He's anchored.
He's anchored to the real world?
I guess. They call it, I mean, there's some things you can take and some things you can't. And sometimes you can take things to Booyah Moon and you can't bring them back. And I don't really know why. That's not really clear in the book. That's part of, like, I guess, Stephen King's writing choices. Like, everything's not explainable. You can kind of guess.
That makes it really confusing then when she says to Amanda, you're a double and an anchor.
I know. I don't know exactly what that means. I know that Lisey sometimes is an anchor for Scott. She helps bring him back to the real world.
Okay.
Because when Scott was alive, he often went to Booyah Moon on purpose, like of his own choice. But I think when you're there, there's this lure. Remember, she talks about it has the power to fascinate the pool. I think you can get caught up in just staring and like sitting there, like all those people are, and never coming back or not wanting to come back. And they also allude to like other worlds and how you can leave the pool area and travel.
Really?
Like, so who knows?
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
We've covered other Stephen King things, and we know that he's interested in like other dimensions and worlds, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that outside of Booyah Moon. They don't go into it in the book, but they do mention what I just said.
Yeah, you know, one of the people that commented on one of our videos, on our very first video, was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. You know, you're all over the place or whatever. And that kind of frustrated me because it's like we bring at least a novice knowledge of Stephen King, right? And I've read the Dark Tower stuff and a few books, and you've read a few of his short stories and books. And to me, that stuff is like super intriguing. I think it's super intriguing, like what you just said, where you could travel to different worlds. In the Dark Tower books, people are able to go into different realities. Like the gunslinger, like I wear that guy on my shirt often. He's from a different world called Gilead, but he's able to come into our world, you know, our regular world.
That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Booyah Moon's like another world, another dimension, whatever. And like, I mean, it's fantasy, pure fantasy. I mean, I know Stephen King's known for horror, but this is pure fantasy. And I have to say, after reading this, I like actually missed the book. I missed the world. Like I was kind of emotional and sad when it was over for me. And I'm happy I get to go to watch the show now and revisit it.
Yeah.
And I just really wish that I had a pool where I could go to heal everything that happens to me. It's really just a kind of beautiful, cool idea.
Well, do they explain that creature? What do they call the creature on the show?
The Long Boy?
Yeah. Is that like explained in the book? Do they go into a little more detail than we've seen on the show? Like
what it looks like or what it does? Or...
Yeah, is there like more
to
come? Okay, good. I want to sort of learn more about that and see more about that thing. Let's talk about Dane DeHaan for a second.
It's always scary when you go to Booyah Moon a little bit because of the Long Boy. It's not just great. It's beautiful. There's flowers. There's healing waters. There's also a danger.
Okay. Yeah, I meant like when you hear its noises in the background, there's tension there. You know, so I got a little worried for Lisey when I heard it in the background.
Lisey's frequently afraid.
Okay.
She's afraid to go there, and like her going there is it's like necessity. She's injured, right?
Yeah.
What do you call it? Jim Dooley's taken a can opener or a pizza cutter in the show to her. It's actually her boob. I don't know if we talked about that. We didn't talk about the can opener to the boob last time. I don't think we did. We know she's like hurt, and they show it like her chest, but it's actually her breast. It's like mutilated. Well, I guess she got healed though. Yeah. Right, okay. Right. Well, yeah. So, I wanted to talk about Jim Dooley too, right? Mm-hmm. You know, he's just sort of hanging out in Manda's house, and the cop shows up at Manda's house at one point to investigate. He doesn't see him there, and then Jim Dooley's just, you know, stroking his yo-yo or whatever you want to. I don't know what you call that, like just bouncing his yo-yo. I feel like you're like making innuendo, but yeah, he's got a yo-yo. Yeah, well, whatever. When you make it like he's playing with his yo-yo. Okay, so he's doing that, right? And I think it's the actual verb of yo-yoing. Okay, he's yo-yoing on the porch. You said that there's no yo-yo in the book, right? No, they added that for the show, which is another touch I like. Yeah, that they added. Does he have his vest? Because I realized that like one of the reasons why it looks awkward, he always kind of looks like he's going to go fishing.
He has this like vest on.
Yeah. No, they don't really describe him that much.
Okay.
Like they definitely don't really describe what he's wearing. Oh well, he wears like Doc Martens at one point because he threatens to stomp her face. So you get little details like in that way.
Sure.
But you don't get a full description, you know?
Yeah. I think Stephen King actually does it on purpose often. He doesn't like go into super detail about his characters because he wants you to kind of fill in the blanks.
Great.
Yeah. And so we know that he's sort of being set up by this episode. Lisey
by the Twisted Sisters.
Right, that's the thumbnail for this week. Lisey wants the Professor Lunch Meal, or what's his name? Dash Meal? There we go. Dash Meal. I got it.
I love Lunch Meal.
Lunch Meal. Appropriate. She wants him to talk to Dooley and say,
meet me in the barn loft at 10 p.m. tonight.
Right, and she leaves like an answering machine message like that.
She just wants to make sure he hears it because there's no one has a way of getting a hold of him. No one has his phone number, no one has an email or anything. He calls them, they don't call him. So she's just trying to figure out ways to let him know that she'll be waiting. And of course, she's like setting a trap, right? You get that from this episode, right?
Yeah.
And personally, my favorite scene in this episode is when the three sisters go to that kind of overhang, that ledge, which I'm wondering where that is in real life. Really beautiful, like national park scenic overlook thing.
Maybe somewhere in Maine, I guess.
I don't know where they filmed this, but it's really cool looking. And it's raining, and they get together, and they just get kind of excited about their plan, and we're gonna fucking kill him.
Yeah, they say in unison.
Yeah, they say it in unison several times, jumping up and down in the rain like little girls, which I think is really nice because it's reminiscent of their little girl time on the Hollyhocks when they were children.
Mm-hmm.
Which, interestingly enough, is what Amanda sees when she goes to Booyah Moon, and that's another kind of cool thing, which is that Booyah Moon is kind of. It's there and other people can go there, but everybody has their own kind of specialized vision when they go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scott Landon doesn't see the hollyhocks on the water, but Amanda's character, like she does, because that's her personal connection. Anyway, so I think that's kind of cool.
Lisey dancing, and him and Lisey dancing at their wedding. At least in the show he does. Right?
Yeah.
It's that song they've played like 18 times.
Too late to turn back.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they don't say he sees that exactly. Whatever. Like it does say that in the show, but they talk about how it's specified a little bit to each person.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I like that. Kind of reminds me of like What Dreams May Come, and I know that like Richard Matheson was a big influence on Stephen King. In that book,
Who's Richard Matheson?
Richard Matheson wrote What Dreams May Come. He wrote I Am Legend. The books that these movies are based on, these are like classic books. And in What Dreams May Come, like heaven is essentially like your interpretation of what heaven would be. So I really bought into that. I was like, it's an individual heaven for each person.
I love the movie What Dreams May Come. I'm so glad you brought that up because I've actually thought of that movie, which is kind of like maybe obscure at this point because when did it come out? In the 90s?
90s, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a hit or anything because people want to see Robin Williams be a comedian. Given his legacy, like that he killed himself and stuff, like it's perfect for him, really, now in retrospect. But I actually liked it when it came out. I went and saw it in the theater.
Yeah. And
like my favorite thing about What Dreams May Come, it's a flawed movie, but I always remember it because of the visuals were so gorgeous and dark and disturbing. And my favorite thing about it was the kind of pirate ship that was Hell. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yes.
And that totally does make me think of this show.
Yeah. The visuals in that movie are kind of similar. There's a lot of like gardens, like in the book and in the movie, there's the idea that they're in a garden where it's like a painting. The garden itself.
Because his wife's a painter.
Right. And so like when you touch the flowers, you get paint on your hands. Right?
Yeah, it's so well done.
Kind of reminds me of Booyah Moon in here. Yeah. So I have basically one last question for you, Shari, before we wrap it up for tonight, unless you had something else to talk about. No? So I was going to say that you and I have watched at least 2 Stephen King shows in 2021, right? We watched The Stand, which was like started in 2020, I think, and went into 2021, and then this. Is it like a no contest? Like you like this way more than The Stand?
I want to say I like it way more, but I do like it more.
You like it more?
Yeah.
Yeah. There are definitely some choices in The Stand that kind of bothered me, and a lot of things I thought were goofy. I don't think there's anything goofy in this. If there's anything I could say that's a criticism of this show, it's just that So it really seems like it takes its time and it kind of meanders. And
yeah, and I was going to tell you this too. Like I've read recently, when I finished the book, I checked it off my Goodreads, and I allowed myself to read some of what people had to say. I won't read that stuff until I'm finished because there's a lot of spoilers sometimes, and I don't want to be biased by other people's opinions. But I'll read it after I'm finished. So I read some people's opinions, and it's Lisey's story is pretty. It splits the audience, the Stephen King audience. People either love it or hate it. So there were some people who were like, "This is my favorite book. Wow. I love this book so much." And then there were some people like, "This is stupid. I hate it." They hated the lingo and the made up words and the made up world because I haven't read a lot of his major books. I've read all of the short story books. I mean, I'm definitely familiar, but I haven't read The Shining and The Stand and the things he's really well known for, or It. Mm-hmm. But apparently he's always weird and makes things up and stuff. But this one goes to an extreme that people aren't comfortable with. And I did think it too when I was listening to the book. I was kind of like, this is really strange, and I wasn't digging all the made up words. But then I just got into it and I got sucked in, and now, like I said, I freaking miss it, and it means something to me now, and I'm happy to see it on the show. So I'm probably in the camp that is a fan of Lisey's story, but there are people who definitely don't like it.
I see.
So, I mean, you could maybe be one of them,
Yeah, I couldn't get into it, but I think I am going to get into it after I finish a few books that I'm listening to so I can do reviews with my friends and stuff. I
mean, you've read more of his books than I have. Do you think he's kind of an emotional, does he get you emotionally usually?
There's definitely been things that have been upsetting, and I'm not just talking about that they're disturbing. It's just that you feel sad for characters. That's for damn sure. You empathize with certain characters.
Okay. Yeah. That's how I felt. I felt sad and I empathized.
Yeah. It's sad because there's certain books and stuff that I think they're maybe not going to adapt. They've tried to adapt. Like Mike Flanagan was going to adapt Revival, which is a book. And actually, I put Revival kind of high on my list of Stephen King books I like a lot. And there's some real sadness and some real suffering in that book. And, I could empathize with the characters in that. And when they tried to adapt The Dark Tower, they kind of failed miserably. But,
is that an emotional story?
Yeah. I mean, you really feel for the main guy, Roland, and there's kind of people from our world that kind of join him, and they suffer and stuff too. And
yeah, I was with Lisey's story, I was surprised by how emotional it was. I cried, and I mean, I haven't had that experience previously with Stephen King. Nothing made me cry. So I don't know. I was in it, but not for the horror aspect. It did win the Bram Stoker Award the year it came out.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they honored him, but that's a horror award.
Yeah.
I guess the horrible part is kind of the Long Boy and Jim Dooley, but those parts are kind of small in comparison to what this is really about.
Yeah.
Which is about grief and loss, but also how Lisey got her groove back.
Yeah. I don't know. When I think about that Bram Stoker Award, this is kind of going off the topic a little bit, but I've read at least one Bram Stoker nominated book. I read Inspection by Josh Mallerman. That's actually the first Anchorpete video ever. And in that...
nominated or won?
It was nominated and it didn't win. And that's just 2 years ago.
We'll tell our viewers who Josh Mallerman is in case they're not familiar.
Oh, well, Josh Mallerman, he's kind of like Stephen King. He's a guy that he's written a lot of horror movies. He's written a lot of horror books. He's very prolific, and he's just been around for the past couple of years, and in the limelight. He wrote Bird Box, which they made a movie out of that.
A very successful Netflix movie.
Yeah. And so I'm listening to Bird Box right now on audiobook. I'm hoping to review it with Danny on the Lasercast channel, and then maybe we might review his book Goblin.
Well, what were you going to say about him? You said you were reading his book.
Yeah. Well, for Bird Box and for Inspection, it's what I liked about those two books and what I liked about some of the Stephen King that I've read is that it's not all about let's just get as much gore as we can, or let's just be as thrilling as we can. Sometimes it's just being with the character and just seeing how bleak the world can be and how they try to be optimistic, dealing with situations. I think that's a big part of horror is you can't go into that world normally because you have your everyday life, And so you go into it when you read a book, and you can kind of feel relief about your own life. You're like, oh, well, at least life isn't as bad as this. I think that's a big aspect of horror. And I think Stephen King captures that pretty well. He can give you that kind of tension and that anxiety in the American world, in our suburban American world. He can make things be very scary. It's not like a post-apocalyptic landscape most of the time. He's very good at that.
Okay.
Got a little preachy there at the very end, but whatever. That's what we're here for. That's what you're here for, right? To listen to us ramble. So we appreciate you guys coming. And
I have one last thing to say.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I just want to say that Tabitha King, Stephen King's wife, who we've speculated this book is very much based on somewhat of their relationship. I just said somewhat and very much. Well, whatever. Somewhere they're related to the book. She has 3 sisters in real life. Yeah.
You said there's 4 sisters in the book, right?
Yeah, but one of them doesn't even play. They just mentioned her name, you know, and they mentioned that Lisey's the youngest of 5, so it's pretty close.
Yeah. And there's 2 sisters on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that you have this insight into the book that I don't have yet. And we hope that you guys can join us for the last 2 episodes. Make sure to check out all 3 channels that I'm on. This channel, Anchorpete, then there's the LISEY'S, and then there's also Comic Books Transformed with me and my friend Brian. Just today on the LISEY'S, I did a review of Fear Street, Part 1, 1994. I'm kind of proud of that video if you want to go check it out too. And check that out on Netflix. But
shouldn't you say like and subscribe?
Like and subscribe to this channel too. That'd be great. We could always use some more subscribers and some likes and views. Is that good?
And comments.
Yeah. We missed those comments that we got for what do you call it, Mayor of Easttown.
Yeah, and we have other videos with comments. I mean, I just would like to I'm into this, so I want to discuss it.
Yeah, so much of the fun of this is hearing what you guys think about these shows too. So yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, and we will see you guys live.